Okay, very good. Well, my name is Mike Brightman. My company is Brightman Designs, and I want to present to you today a complete residential project in SketchUp. Brightman Designs, we offer design, drafting, visualization, and workflow training services. Everything that we do revolves around SketchUp Pro, Layout, Lumion, and Condoc tools. Not too long ago, I wrote a book, The SketchUp Workflow for Architecture. And in this book, I presented how SketchUp can be leveraged during every phase of the design process, whether that's site analysis, schematic design, design development, or construction documents. Now, it turns out, though, that construction documents can be a bit of a challenge. So in the book, in Chapter 20, I presented stacking of viewports, creating all of the different scenes, flipping all these layers on and off, and applying styles and render settings and layout. It took a lot to get that task done. So we developed a tool called the Condoc tools. Condoc tools for SketchUp Pro. So right now we're on version 2. We have 4 different buttons on the toolbar. That is the plan generator, the section tool, the elevation tool, and the perspective tool. Now, available August 1st, and also included in all the class files on those jump drives, is version 3, at least the preview. So if you do have a Condoc license, you have the early release of version 3. And in version 3, we have the Condoc system. This is a standalone RBZ. It's a heads-up display that keeps you within our set of standards. So it's really like the best features of the entity info dialog and the outliner compressed into one single line of text. You've also got these layer warnings. So if you've ever accidentally got on the wrong layer, you just click that button when it warns you, and it jumps back to layer 0. We also have design mode, and that's pretty familiar. That's SketchUp, right? Just a snappy, really fast, lightweight 3D design environment. We also have draft mode. What we've done is embedded 2D CAD into SketchUp, so you have this very familiar 2D CAD drafting interface. It's all line weights are shown by color, and it syncs up with all of your line weights and layout. So then, to complement those tools, or the Condoc system, we have the Match Properties tool. That allows you to sample a layer and apply that layer to another line. So when you're in draft mode, you can move really fast, just like 2D CAD. I find that sometimes you just need to draft a 2D diagram. So we love those 3D details, but sometimes I need to draft. And now you have the ability to do it in SketchUp. We also have the Detail tool to round out those Condoc type tools. The Detail tool rattles off several scenes that all sync up with layout. So that's where you really get the magic happening with scene naming, organization, and layering, all coming together to make that one thing work. Okay. Let's talk for a moment about the design process. This is a house I worked on not too long ago, a couple years ago. We put a 2-story addition on it. It's a dining room, and then kind of a media room above. And so the reason I wanted to briefly talk about this one is to illustrate or make the point that we often lose sight of the end goal, and that is a built structure. We're talking about the construction documents and renderings and 3D printing. Sometimes we lose sight of the fact that we're building a house. But in order to build that house, we do need those construction documents. And we need to clearly annotate within industry graphics standards. So we need to tell those tradesmen exactly how to put this thing together and do it in a way that the city's going to accept it, permit it, everyone's comfortable stamping it, and we're confident about it. In order to get to a place where we're able to illustrate our design to that level of detail, we truly need to explore our design with design drawings. Now, design drawings are often a little bit looser, more colorful. So these are great for presenting to clients, presenting internally to the team, and also presenting to yourself, so you can mark them up and make some revisions. Now, in order to do any of this, we truly need a design platform and a drafting system. Now, there's all kinds of solutions to this. You could use a drafting table and be very successful. That went on for hundreds of years. Some of the greatest buildings ever built were designed on a drafting table. You could also use 2D CAD. 2D CAD had a really strong run, like 30 years or so. And I like 2D CAD. I got really good at that. I'm really familiar with 2D CAD, and I can do it very fast. I know exactly what I'm doing in there. But we also need 3D. So 3D BIM is another way to do it. So the nice thing, each one of these systems is building on inefficiencies of the previous. So 2D CAD really built on that digital drafting table, and BIM is building on the inefficiencies of 2D CAD. So when you make a change in 3D, all of your drawings update. Now, some of these systems are very expensive, and some are free, some are very complex, and some are simple. But the point is that it's whatever works best for you. So there's no right or wrong answer. It's all about your project type, your workflow, and your office. So what we're really trying to do is design in a fast and fluid manner, communicate clearly within industry graphic standards, and ultimately create a beautiful design for the client. So we do have a suggested solution for this design platform and drafting system, and being at 3D Basecamp, and I'd say it anywhere, it is SketchUp Pro and Layout. So why would you want to use SketchUp Pro and Layout as your design platform and your drafting system? Well, I can tell you it's a really lightweight download, and I'm probably preaching to the choir here, but it's super snappy, it's fast, it's just got the right amount of tools that I need, and it opens quick, and my files are lightweight. It's inexpensive, it's a fraction of the cost of some of these other solutions, and it looks good. It's just, if I paint grass on the ground, it looks like grass. If I paint the walls brown, the walls look brown. So I get that real-time feedback. It is a great design platform. It's also, one way to look at it too is that 2D drawings are a product of your 3D model. Now this is in sharp contrast to a lot of these other BIM solutions where you're going to draft 2D lines. And in doing so, you're using like a wall drawing tool. You're drafting. You're dragging and dropping 2D symbols, and they absorb into the wall. Well, that's great, but it's really drafting, and then you see your 3D model growing in the other window. What I love about SketchUp is that I can build and think and design in 3D, and my drawings are a product of that 3D model. So then lastly, it's flexible and customizable. So it doesn't come over-featured with a bunch of buttons I'm never going to use. I can build my own SketchUp architectural desktop with all of the tools that I need to get my job done. So those are some of the reasons why you'd really want to use SketchUp as a design platform and Layout as a drafting system. Now there are some missing links between your SketchUp Pro and your construction documents. Now, some of those are standards or layering standards. So the truth is that there really are no standards for SketchUp. It's 3D for everyone, and everyone's doing it their own way. There's a lack of automation, but that's okay too, because we've been given the Ruby API, so we can really build our own tools and really automate. Natively, SketchUp does not necessarily address all of the graphic standards that an architect would want from a drafting system. And lastly, there's a bit of a lack of training resources with an end goal and an end user in mind. So training resources that not only tell you how to do things, but why you're doing it for your industry. So I find that Condoc is really the missing link. Condoc is what gets you from SketchUp Pro into construction documents rather quickly and really addresses all of those problems. And we do that using 3 different parts of Condoc, and that is the Condoc system being the set of standards and layering and templates, and also that heads-up display that's really going to keep you on track and within our system. It's also the Condoc tools that automates the most difficult tasks in SketchUp, and that's layers, styles, shadows, section planes, and attaching all of those to scenes. Also, the Condoc drawings are already optimized, all set up to fit within industry graphic standards. So you're just going to drag and drop those in, and your drawings will look beautiful. There is no need to explode anything when you're using the Condoc system, no need to explode to get those results that you want. Furthermore, we've got training. We've got lots of videos that have the end user, the end goal in mind, that built structure. As designers, architects, you want to just get to that end product, and we can show you how to use this software to get there. Okay, so the system I'm going to show you today, which Condoc, It's easily leveraged or abandoned during any phase of the design process. It's scalable for any project size, whether that is residential or commercial, and it's adaptable to any project type, whether that's new construction or renovation. It's predictable, cost-effective, and it will benefit anyone using SketchUp to design spaces and structures. So let's introduce the project we're going to run through today. This is 3655 Milwaukee, and this is in an up-and-coming neighborhood in Denver. And a lot of these houses are having the roofs pulled off and building a second floor on top, and we call them pop-tops in Denver. So we hear a lot about that. So the program for this particular one, or the design challenge, is to add an accessory dwelling unit in the back. So the client is a contractor, and he wants a place to park his big truck and put all of his tools, and then also an apartment above it. And then in the front, we want to do a 2-story addition and expansion and go with something pretty modern and open and airy. So today what we're going to do is go through basically the SketchUp workflow for architecture. During each of these phases of the design process, we're going to first record field measurements, produce existing conditions drawings, create design sketches, visualize in Lumion, wrap everything together in layout to create that design packet, and then we're going to move over into layout and explore construction documents. And at that point, I want to show you how this new draft mode works. So the first step of any renovation project is to create some field notes, some existing conditions drawings. So this is a real example of when I went out to that house to measure it. But I can tell you that before I go to measure, I always do this task. It takes me 7 or 8 minutes in the office and saves me at least an hour or two every time I go to measure a house. So let me show you how I pace off the building first in SketchUp before I get to the site. So I'll go to File, Geolocation, Add Location, and we're going to type in 3655 Milwaukee, Denver, and search that. So there's our site. I'll click on Select Region and then click on Grab. What that does is it imports a 1-to-1 real-world scale image of the site. So right away, if I get that first phone call, I can measure off the site, and I can understand that we're about 125 feet by 50 feet. I can orb around to 3D, and what I'm going to do here is trace out this site. So I'll use my rectangle tool and draw a rectangle around there and around here. So we're just kind of pacing off the site, making a scaled drawing on top of this Google Earth imagery. Next, I'm going to right-click on that surface and choose Add Photo Texture. What that does is it brings up that Google Street View, so I can look at the house and maybe make some more assumptions. So if I haven't been there yet, I can very quickly and easily get to that street view, and we can see we've got about a 1-foot overhang, and this back structure is set back just about 1.5 feet or 2. And then over on the other side, we do have this porch inset. So when I look back at the house, we can just kind of trace that out and just loosely describe it, and that way we'll be one step ahead of the game when we get to the site. So what I'm going to do is just kind of make an assumption on my offset of 12 inches for the roof. And then I'm going to draw a rectangle down here at 10 feet by 6 feet for that front porch. Trim out that geometry and then offset by 8 inches. Next, on this back wall, I'll fill in these lines here. And then we're going to offset this guy by, say, 5 inches, just to make some line work to work with in layout. Now, I'm going to turn off my snapshot. We're going to take all of our surfaces here and delete them. That way we've just got simple line work. I group it and I copy it. You can choose Edit Copy, go into Layout and start a new document, and under Title Blocks, I've got this title block set up. So it's optimized for field notes. What I'll do then is right-click and paste. So now I've taken that digital, the digitized site, thrown it into Layout, but now what I need to do is set up the view. So we're going to set this to ortho. We're going to go with a scale of like 1/4 inch equals a foot, and then standard views top. And then I'm going to scale this out a bit, and you can see that 1/4 inch is just a little bit too big for that page. And then if I go back here and go to 1/8 inch, that's just a little too small. So it is very possible to add a custom scale. So we can go to our scales and say 1 inch on paper equals 5 feet in the model. We'll add that custom scale and then go back and apply it. So there's our 1 inch equals 5 feet. So now we can adapt it and make our own scale so that this thing fits really well on the paper. But that scale is not too valuable unless we apply a custom grid. So we'll go into our document setup under grid, and here our grid spacing is at 1 inch, and our subdivisions are at 8. So if I set that grid to be 1 to 5, now I've got a custom graph paper to fit my custom scale, and I can go to File and choose Export, PDF, and send this to my desktop. I always throw it in my temp folder. We'll call this Field Notes. All right, so that's going to send that out, and now we've got our PDF. We hit print, and usually I'll put out like 5 copies of this, put them on my clipboard, grab my tape measure, and go to the site. Now, if I go back into our presentation here, this is the end result. We go out there and we start recording our field measurements. So you can imagine that I don't have any more of those problems where I'm drawing off my page. I'm kind of confused about the scale. I've done that in a tough way too many times. So that's really where all this came from, is years of fumbling around with clipboards and too much paper in the field. So when you've just got like 5 or so 8.5 by 11s, you can really follow this system and make your life a lot easier. So the way that we record field notes, if I zoom in, I always take an X and a Y, like an overall room dimension. And that's just kind of a check, just a just in case. Like if things aren't adding up, I've at least got somewhere to check. Also, our windows, we record them as sill height, window height. This way, I'm able to, as I'm drawing my existing conditions model, very easily copy my openings up by 46 inches and 38.75. The reason being for all of these field notes and the way we're recording them is with that end goal of modeling in SketchUp. Also, our wall dimensions. I just take the overall wall dimensions, like 27 is that entire length of wall. 87 goes to that other corner. I record all of my dimensions in decimal inches. That way, when I'm in SketchUp, I'm not typing 3:1/2. I'm just typing 3.5, and it becomes a brainless drafting task. I also take a handful of general notes, like all interior walls are 5 inches with stud plaster. All interior doors are 81 high, and all exterior walls are 8-inch block. Then, this is a good trick too. I always bring trace paper with me. You notice that there are not any kitchen fixtures or bathroom fixtures on this drawing. I want this drawing real nice and clean. But what I do is lay my trace paper over and go back and measure all my fixtures. This way, it's like a layering system in the field. So now I can record all the bathroom fixtures, make any notes I need to make, and be really sloppy about it. Maybe there's some special condition I want to really get in detail, but you have the ability to do so. Now, what we do is we take these field notes back, we scan them, and then we put them into SketchUp, and we're going to produce existing conditions drawings. So let me show you how that works. In SketchUp, I'm going to go to File and choose Import. All supported image types, and we're going to go with our desktop. Here's our field notes, and we'll import that as an image. When this comes in, I can just kind of scale it close. It doesn't really matter. I always do right-click and choose Unglue because that lets that line work show through. Next, I'm going to use my Move tool and position this over here on my line work. And you can see that I am pretty close. Looks like I could scale it down just a touch. That's fine. So it really doesn't matter how off your line work is, because we are going to dial this in and digitize it with precise dimensions. So what I'll do is scoot in here, and we're going to move this guy right there. And I'll start on this bottom left corner here and draw a square. So that is an 8-inch by 8-inch square. And then I'm going to pull it up by our ceiling height. So here I made a note of 94.5. So I'll use my push-pull tool and pull this up by 94.5. Enter. Okay, so now right here at this point, this other line work is really not needed. We've positioned that wall right where it's going to be, and we're going to grow this building off of it. So I can use my push-pull tool, and I can start to model. I keep all of my interior wall dimensions to the inside of the model. That way I can just work right around the perimeter here. I'll go 19.25, and then I'll type in 31 and 66, 34.5. So let's just pull a few of these out, and 95. Now, to turn the corner here, I'm going to use my push-pull tool and pull this out by 8. And now I can just turn the corner at 23 and 35. And we'll just get through the door here. So 23, 36. Okay, then let's turn this one corner, and then we'll talk about where we go from here. So 37.5. All right, so you can imagine that if you just went all the way around the perimeter, that's a pretty quick and easy task. Now, the task of punching these openings becomes much easier when you record your field notes like this. I can just zoom in. I'm not fumbling around with a bunch of papers on my desk, all these sloppy field notes. I've got everything in my laptop. So now I can just use my Move Copy tool and copy this up by 46, and then I'll copy it up again by 38.75. So remember, sill height, window height. Now for these two windows, I've got one here and one here. So I'm going to make that kind of clever selection and then make a copy up at 29.5, and then make another copy up at 55. And then the door is at 80 inches tall. There we go. So then I just use my eraser tool and do a little bit of cleanup, and we're looking in pretty good shape here. And then I'll clean up these interior lines. So now all I need to do is go around and draft in this kind of brainless manner, and then I'm going to push-pull all of my openings in. The push-pull tool has a memory. I can double-click, double-click, and double-click, and punch each one of those openings. So ideally, you're setting up that production line of modeling, where you just go around the entire perimeter and knock them all out. Okay, so now we have our exterior walls in SketchUp. But SketchUp is 3D for everyone. It's not exactly 3D for architects, although it is spectacular for that. So we need to tell SketchUp that these are walls. To SketchUp, it's just edges and faces. So with my Select tool, I'll triple-click to select all connected geometry, and then right-click and choose Make Group. So once I've got my group, I can assign a layer. Part of the Condoc system is that we only assign layers to groups and components. All edges and surfaces belong on layer 0. So in my Entity Info dialog box, I'm going to assign the layer Walls. So now you can see in my Condoc System plugin, it's that heads-up display. It's giving me the information that I've selected my walls. So it's kind of translating my SketchUp model into an architect's language. Now, if you ever get off of your layer 0, you can see that we get that layer warning. All I have to do to fix that is click on that warning, and it fixes it back to layer 0. I see that being a major source of frustration for a lot of beginners. So always keep layer 0 as your current layer. All edges and surfaces go on layer 0, and you only assign layers to groups and components. All right, so now we've got our walls, but we need to further describe those walls. So let me explain our layering system that comes along with Condoc just a little bit further. We have architectural layers and site layers. Those are like nouns. Those are the layers that make up the room. So for instance, in here, we would have like ceiling equipment, floors, walls, furniture. Those are all architectural layers. Site layers are anything on the outside of the building. And then we have something a little more descriptive, and those are conceptual layers. So those are the prefix CONC space-space. Conceptual layers are descriptors. They describe the nouns or the architectural layers. So for instance, we have conceptual interior, conceptual exterior, conceptual level 1, 2, 3, conceptual new and existing. So this is how we can describe all of these pieces that go into our model. So for our walls, I'm going to double click in and then triple click, make group, and assign the layer exterior. This way, I now have my walls exterior. So you can see that that model level navigator is really keeping us informed about where we're at in the model. Okay, so now we're ready to back out here, and I'm going to set up a guideline, and let's do some interior walls. We'll make those 5 inches wide, and then I'm just going to pull this out a few times. We'll say 88.5, and then we'll do 32.5, and 87. Now let's go one more. So we got 3.5 and 33.5, and then 27 out this way. Okay, so you can see how you start to put this thing together. But now, again, we've made some geometry, but SketchUp doesn't know exactly what that is. We need to assign the layer architectural walls, or put it in the walls group. So what I'm going to do is make all of this geometry into a group and assign the layer interior. So now this is my interior walls container. I'm going to cut it, so I can go to Edit and choose Cut. And then I'm going to double click into my walls container. And I want to paste those right in place. There's a command in SketchUp called Paste in Place. It drops it right back where it was. So I've got my interior walls, I've got my exterior walls. So that is like the most basic functionality of Condoc, or the layering and model organization system. You're going to do this the exact same way for all of your architectural layers, whether it's windows, doors, floors, and you're also going to add complexity. So you can also add complexity of like different levels, of like level 1 container that holds all of the level 1 walls. But if you layer in this way and make these nested groups with different layers applied to them, you really drastically reduce the amount of layers needed. Otherwise, and I've done it this way, you would have level 1 new exterior walls, level 1 existing exterior walls, and so on and so forth, all the way down the line. And literally, you've got hundreds of layers. It works, but it's a nightmare to manage all of that. So with this, you're using the same exterior layer to describe all of your architectural objects. You're using the same interior, new, existing layers to describe all these objects. Now, there's no existing layer just yet, so what we're going to do is run the plan generator. The plan generator comes up, and we can choose what our scenario for this model is. So this particular project is a renovation project. We are working in our existing conditions. It's one level, and there is no basement, and really all we need right now is our existing conditions plan. So I'd click on Setup Project. What that just did is it dropped in a series of section planes. It added styles. It named scenes. It did a lot of work in that one little click right there. So now if I go to Construction Plan Heavy, and sorry, this one does go on the conceptual background layer. So here's a heavy line weight. And now on the light line weight, we're not quite there yet. So we need to add some light objects. So we're going to go to our Condoc components and add in our Condoc door. Like that. And then let's also add in our Condoc windows. So we've got our Condoc window here. Now these components do come with Condoc tools. If I scale this out, you can see how that window distorts, and then it rebuilds itself. This is a dynamic component. The cool thing about the way that these windows work, and the doors as well, is if I look at those component options, we have a 2D graphic placement. I can change that 2D graphic placement so you can see it. All of these objects have a 3D object and a 2D graphic. So if something doesn't render right in plan, like in this room, the chairs would all probably render correctly if we sliced a section plane through this building and looked at this room in plan view. All of these chairs would kind of look like the graphic indication, a 2D graphic indication of a chair. But something like those doors would not show up with a door swing. So that's where our Condoc door comes in. So for this guy, we can like scale it back to -1. But if you were to change this to a different size, you can see that it rebuilds that 2D graphic for you. So I can tell you that when it comes to building existing conditions drawings, I can move through and have this whole thing drafted up very quickly in 3D. So we're going to keep on marching along here. I'll take, we could go back to design, our design mode. And let me make a copy of this. So I'll copy that here and then stretch this. And let me turn off my location and our 2D graphic. Get that back off. All right, so I'll use my scale tool and then stretch those around. We'll rotate that at 90 degrees. And then I'll bring this one over here. And this is where, you know, this one doesn't quite perfectly line up, but I would probably make the assumption that my window is the same across the board versus the wall being off by a ½ inch. Okay, so then these windows, I need to select each one of these windows and make it into a group. And then I'm going to assign the layer windows. So architectural windows. I double click in, and I'm going to hide the rest of the model so you can really see it. I'll select all of my windows. Mom. So, I'll make a group and drop this in there, and we'll say exterior. All right. So now when I select those windows, we have our windows exterior. So again, the same thing over and over and over. Windows, doors, walls, ceilings, floors. You set it up in a very predictable manner. This is a system that everyone can work within, so when you open up somebody's SketchUp model, you know exactly where things go and how it works. All right, so again, when we go back to our construction plan light, you can see that we have a light line weight, we have a heavy line weight, and we also have our hatches. So our exterior walls, our interior walls are getting hatched, and everything is dynamically linked in layout. So we're not too concerned with these layout drawings just yet, or these layout scenes. So what I'm going to do is open up this project on my desktop. And we're going to open up our existing conditions drawing. So this is what it looks like when it's all finished. And you can see that you can check level 1, walls, exterior, existing. So that is how that is all set up. So that string of text there representing the nested layering. So if you just stick to the system, everything falls into place. Now, when I go into layout, I can start a new document. And this is the third part of Condoc, is the Condoc drawings. So we've already got everything kind of built up into a drag and drop mode. So I like to use an 11:17 presentation style. And I would go to my Condoc plan 01, and we're going to drop a level 1 construction plan. And I'm going to relink. All of your Condoc drawings come with a placeholder file. So I relink this file to my desktop, Basecamp, and here's my existing conditions. Everything renders in there, and now we've got our existing conditions plan. Cool? So you go File, Export, PDF. I'll throw this on my desktop temp and save that as, I always do author _ project name space dash space description, and that would be existing conditions. And we'll export that out and take a look. So that is the drawing that we just showed in our presentation. That's how you make it using Condoc. So what do we do with that, though? We go back over here. This is the drawing that we just created. We print it out, we tape it to our desk, and we start coming up with ideas. So we've got some design sketches. I find it hard to just simply design in SketchUp. I need to print these existing conditions drawings. I need to go to my drafting table, and I might start out with a Sharpie and then start into a more finer pen and coming up with some better ideas about how this thing is going to come together. And once I've got my strategy, I can then move back into SketchUp and start building this design. And that's where we're going to create our presentation drawings. Okay, so to create this design packet, these looser, more colorful and sketchy design drawings, in SketchUp, let me hop back over here, and here's our existing conditions model. What I would do is save as. Once your existing conditions model is very well along, we're going to do a save as and call it proposed conditions. So I'll save this as my desktop temp, and we're going to call this one proposed conditions. Those are like the only two files that I really have as far as SketchUp goes. Existing conditions, proposed conditions, and then really for my layout files, they're named exactly the same. So now this existing conditions file has been labeled proposed conditions. And check it out. In this existing conditions model, we only have a level 1 layer, and we only have our existing layer. Well, that's because we haven't run the Condoc Tools plan generator in the renovation proposed conditions model just yet. So I'll go to my plan generator. We'll go to renovation, proposed conditions. The proposed conditions are 2 levels, no basement, and we want all of these plans. Now, watch how many scenes this is about to create. I'll show you the list where we're at now with our existing conditions. I rattle this off, and it just dumps all of those plans in. It names them, it organizes them, it's flipping all these layers on and off, it's applying styles, it's dropping section planes. It's doing so much work that I described in chapter 20 of my book, all with that one click of a button. It's all completely automated. But it's really just a jump start. It's not to say that you can't get here and then flip layers on and off, make different styles. If you know layers, styles, and scenes, you can really leverage this thing. You can bend it and break it and totally make it your own. But the Condoc Tools is a massive automation, huge jump start to get going on this. Okay, so there's our proposed conditions. So now I'll go to File, Open, and I've got on my class files here a Milwaukee Street, let's see, proposed conditions Condoc ready. So I'm going to open that one. And by Condoc ready, that's kind of class ready, right? So everything's already been set up in our plan generator, kind of like where we just ended up. But what I really want to do is show you some of these other tools. So right now, we have all of our plans set up in this model. So what we need, though, is to create a design packet. So we want to create some color elevations, and we also want to create a black and white section. So what I'll do is just kind of navigate around in design mode, and then I'll click on the elevation tool. I'm sorry, first I'm going to go to Extensions, Condoc, Settings. This is where you can choose whether you are applying settings for construction documents or for a design packet. So I'll go to Design Packets, close that, activate my elevation tool, and click. So there is my elevation 1. That was the same thing as going to camera, standard view, side, camera, parallel projection, window, styles, choose a style, window, shadows, set up all your shadows, flipping on a bunch of layers, windows, scenes, click the plus sign, rename the scene, elevation 01. Everything that I just described happened with that one click. So I'll just zoom in here and choose Update, and then I'll go back to design mode, and let's add a front elevation. So over here, I can click on the elevation tool and click on the front. I like to just zoom in and update elevation 2. So you can see how fast you can move through this thing. It's numbering them automatically. Keeps everything perfectly organized. We'll go back to design mode. That design mode button is really nice too. That's the same thing as hitting camera, perspective, and then going to a snap your style and turning your shadows off. So just having one button that does that over and over, I found that to be a huge benefit. All right, so now let's see. We want to add a black and white section. I'll go to Extensions, Condoc, Settings, and go to Construction Documents. Now we're going to add a section plane right about here. So I'll orient my section plane and click. All right, so now I've got the section cut, and we can choose Update. So the other thing I can do is go back to Design, and let's take 4 snapshots of perspectives. So I'll go over here and say we want a perspective of the front, and maybe we want another one right here. And then we'll scoot around like this and grab a perspective of this guy. And then scoot back and maybe another perspective here. So you can see it's rattling off all those settings. Perspective 1, 2, 3, and 4. There's a lot of work that's happening there with just a couple clicks. Okay, and then it's not to say either that if you were to go to the inside, I don't know if you guys have ever added a section or a perspective view on the inside of a SketchUp model, but oftentimes your ceilings end up pretty gray. So with the perspective tool, if I hold Control, the little guy jumps in the house, and now when I add a perspective, everything is optimized for interior perspectives in SketchUp. All right, so let's go to File and choose Save As. I'm going to save this to my desktop temp folder, and we're just going to call this, we'll leave it as Condoc Ready. And I'm going to hop over into Layout, and let's add some drawings here. We've got our existing conditions. I'll add a sheet, and let's see, we want to go to our presentation plan. And I'm going to add Level 1, quarter-inch presentation plan. We'll go to Level 2, quarter-inch presentation plan. I'll add a sheet and go to our elevations, and I'd say we could go with 1/8" elevation 1 and an 1/8" elevation 2. And then let's go back to the beginning here, add a sheet, and go to our perspectives. Now our perspectives, we can drag all 4 in at one time by clicking on those squares in the middle, and I'll just kind of size them to fit the sheet. All right. That looks good. So now we've dropped all of our Condoc drawings into our set. We've built our cartoon set based on drawings and scales and just kind of position those on the page. So we've got, let me adjust our perspectives, probably go in the front. We've got our existing conditions plans. And let's just start relinking our model. So again, all of those Condoc drawings come with those placeholders. I'll relink this to my desktop temp, Condoc Ready. And that's going to just update. We'll relink this one, Condoc Ready, and relink this one, Condoc Ready. So what that does, it just turns them over. And now you've got these beautiful presentation plans. You can do these in color, no problem. We'll just kind of resize our viewport here. Like that. All right, so there's one. And then you would just go through here. There's another presentation plan. And then we've got our elevations. Elevations just a little heavier. And you might go in here and say, it's a little confusing for me to see the context behind my elevation. So what I would do is go back into SketchUp and look at elevation 1 and then choose to turn off that layer. So by default, the context layer is on, but I can turn that off and update, and then go to elevation 2. Go to our context layer, turn that off, and update. All right, so now I can go to File, Save, and hop back into Layout and refresh this. So again, this is just a giant jump start on using this typical SketchUp and Layout workflow. In Layout, I'm just going to choose Update Model Reference, and then my context goes away. There we go. Okay, so then in Layout, you would go around and you'd stretch your viewports, you'd do all that, and then you can very easily go in here and choose these different construction document annotations. So we provide those as well, as far as room tags, callouts, section callouts, and all the annotations you're going to need. Here's our perspectives. Okay, so let's just open up a final view of this proposed conditions or these design drawings. We've got one that's already finished. So we'll go to our desktop, and here's our project. And so we're going to go with 3655 proposed. So we'll just open that and take a look. And this one's all kind of noted up as far as here's our SketchUp perspectives, there's our presentation plans, all kind of noted up with just some very simple text. Okay, so that's very easy to choose File, Export, PDF, and that is how you get to this stage of the game. Okay, so now the thing about these design packets is that the renderings, the SketchUp views, are very sketchy. And I might want to present with a little more detail. So that's where Lumion comes in. And so we have Lumion here. And this, any Condoc model, if you stick to these model organization techniques and layering techniques, it's not just Lumion, it's really any rendering program. It's a super lightweight model. It's all textured up, and it's organized in a way that's predictable and easy to handle and manage. But Lumion is just a extremely fast, spectacular new rendering program. So the first thing I noticed about Lumion is that the sky's blue, the sun is out, and the clouds look real. So it's like if I go to my weather settings, I can dial up more clouds, I can choose less clouds, I can choose different cloud types. It's really easy to just change your environment in Lumion. If I drop the sun down to a sunset, you can see that the clouds get kind of pink. And if I go to nighttime, the moon comes out, stars come out, looks good. So that was kind of a major first success with Lumion. Also, in my landscape settings, my grass, I can turn that on. So we've got our grass. We've got 3D grass in Lumion. Very quick and easy. Also, the ability to turn on the ocean with the click of a button. I always used to shy away from anything with water. It was like, maybe that's not in my skill set or something I really like to do. With Lumion, it's literally a push of a button. So we'll turn off our ocean. And what we're going to do is import that final design model, that proposed conditions model. So we'll go into Objects and click on Imports, and we're going to import a new model. And that's going to be our desktop. We'll call this one's complete. So we'll choose Open. I'm going to import that model. And I'm going to place that at, let that crank. Okay, so we'll click to place it. And now we've got our SketchUp model located in Lumion. So now I can go to my Move tool, Move Mode, and go with, I always do 050. That way everything can be imported again, and if I need to stack different SketchUp models on top of this, I have an origin point. But check it out, our main materials that really shine in Lumion are glass, grass, and water. So let's talk about glass and grass first. So over here we've got our materials dialog. I click on the glass. So you can see that this is reading all of your SketchUp materials. I'll click on the glass and then choose Lumion Glass. All it does is just reassign that SketchUp material to be a Lumion material. This is a live link. If I were to go in and keep adding windows and painting that glass, all I have to do is refresh my model in Lumion and it just updates. Grass is really easy. I just click on Landscape. Now my SketchUp grass is real 3D growing grass. Also, if I go back here to my water, I can click on the water and go to Nature, and we have a water material as well. So let's assign that as water. It's so easy to make that water animated and flickering in the sun with the click of a button. I'll go to my Nature collection on the waterfall and assign waterfall. So now we've got our hot tub kind of spilling over. Everything's working the way we want it to. Now, not only do you have this ability to assign these materials, it is so easy that I often get caught up and I forget to make presets and build my material sets. But we do have the ability to load a material set. Now that's really easy. If you have the similar materials that you're using over and over, or you take the time to really dial in a Lumion material, it's easy enough to save a set. So I'll load this material set. All these guys are going to kind of spill in there, and everything will be set up for rendering. All right. So let's go back to the front here and place some objects. Oh yeah, the wet asphalt texture is really killer in Lumion. That's pretty nice. That's brand new in 6. Okay, so now let's go to, we'll say Save, and let's add some objects. This is another huge benefit of Lumion, is just an enormous nature library. I find that the nature library, the cars, the 3D people for animations for sure, but are all very valuable, but the nature library is so extensive, it has everything I need as an architectural designer to just represent my building in any region. So you've got small leaf, medium leaf, large leaf, and on each one of these tabs you have several sub-tabs. So let's just grab one of these oaks. That one's huge. We'll go and put that over here. And maybe choose a different one like that, and we'll click over there and over there. We should be able to hold Control and add clusters of trees. And you can see that it just doesn't slow down. All of our trees are pre-animated. They're kind of blowing in the breeze and just moving a little bit. They respond to the foliage wind effect. So it's just a really easy program to make everything look good. All right, so let me back out here. Another cool way to place objects is the mass placement tool. So I'll do that. I'll click from here to here, and I don't want to add those trees, I want to add some flowers. So we'll go to our flower collection, add the daisy orange, pink, oh, we'll go with pink, purple, and red. Okay, so now you can just choose these to randomize a direction. You can randomize the spacing along the line a bit. Let's drop that number of items there. Increase the number of items, and choose OK. So it makes it really easy to start to populate this model with all that vegetation. Cool. All right, so then again, I think that the cars are really strong, a strong collection in Lumion. Let's just add a car here. That way you can see these guys are really nice too. Oh, we don't want to do mass placement necessarily. We'll just drop that number down and then erase one of those. Yeah, so all these guys are all kind of pre-textured. They just really are optimized to work beautifully in Lumion. They're easily animated and the headlights shine. So you can really get a lot of cool effects with these objects. Okay, but we do have a bunch of objects all set up for this, so I'm going to load, merge these objects, and we'll just do that, and let the objects drop in. Now, what we need to do is take some camera shots. So I'm going to scoot around this model and find a good view to represent my design. All right, so here I might go and into photo mode, and let's see, we're going to take a snapshot, and maybe I want to kind of adjust my focal length. So that looks pretty good. And then let's add an effect. Everything is based on effects in Lumion. You've got world effects, weather effects, object effects, and camera effects, sketch and artistic and style. So like weather, you can click a button and make it snow. It's very easy to add. Just get these things that used to be impossible, right? I really wouldn't have thought too hard about making, I guess Alex really described a lot about how to add snow and do all that, but for me, I think this is a nice solution too, to just push that button and get some snow falling. So let's remove that one. Also, things like effects you'd add in Photoshop, like camera effects, such as depth of field. This is a tricky one. I mean, I think there's a tutorial for Sketchup on how to do this and make it work in Photoshop and get all that kind of blurring effect. Let me turn on autofocus. I can set my focal point to be on the front window and choose OK, and dial up the amount of depth of field. So now you can see that I can choose to blur either my foreground or my background, or I can keep it in the middle where the plants in the foreground are just a little out of focus, and then easy enough. So let me render this. I'll render it at 1920 by 1080 by desktop. We'll just call that image number 1. So look how fast that renders. There's not a whole lot of effects on that, but that is literally done. That one is acceptable. If you printed that, it would look pretty good. But what I like to do is load up some effects. So we have like our preset Brightman Designs Photoreal Exterior. When I load up that effect stack, it throws my watermark on there. It's got just all the settings. There's kind of this Instagram effect. So we can go around here and take a few snapshots. So we'll take another snapshot here, and I'll just orbit around to the back, and we'll take another one maybe from up above. And then let's get one with some water in it. Now each one of these guys, and for this one we'll back out the focal length, and that looks pretty good there. All right, so on this guy we're going to load up our file, load. Let's do a sketch effect. Lumion also does some really nice sketch effects. Let me back off to our exposure and dial that down a bit, and that way you really get those colors popping. So on these other guys, let's just load up our photo reel, and we'll go to File, Load, our photo reel. So it's really all about making those presets. If you can just identify the materials you want, the effect, the look you want, you can build your presets, load them every time, and then we'll turn on Save Photo Set, and let's render these at a lower resolution. I'll just call this 3655 and hit Enter. So when I save the photo set, that's going to render out all of these images at the same time. And so really what Lumion does well, I think stills are absolutely fantastic. I mean, the ability to put out this much work this quickly with all these effects on, I mean, we're literally rendering in real time. It also does animation in exactly the same way. So you're eliminating programs like Photoshop or Premiere or iMovie. You're going to do all of your editing and all of your post-processing before you export, basically. It's not that you can't do that stuff still. It's just that I don't really want to. I just want to add all my effects, all my color correction, and all those good things in Lumion, and then hit render and be done with it. So that's all set to go. These guys, I can explode these, and what that does is it breaks these down into an image. And then each one of these images can be relinked. So I'll relink this to my desktop temp, and we've got image 1, and then we'll relink image 2, and relink image 3, and then lastly we've got relink image 4. All right, so that is how you can use Lumion in conjunction with layout. It all works together. This is a great page creation software. Let me open up one last file here from our desktop. Let's see, we'll go back to our class files here. We've got 825 Downing. Now, we've talked about this new feature in Condoc Tools, which is the draft mode. So if I go to the end of the sheet, there's no denying that colorful plans and colorful 3D sections and details, they're gorgeous. I think they're awesome. But sometimes we need to be a little bit more practical and just get things done. So let me add a sheet, and what we're going to do is go back into SketchUp. Sorry, got a little ahead of myself. We'll open up our Basecamp 825 Downing. This is another project that we do have on the board, and this one is actually a little further along. I just went through our construction documents. But in this one, again, we're set up on the Condoc system. This is literally reading at a 9 on our complexity meter. These files are so lightweight because they're so cleanly built and organized. So we've got design mode, and we also have draft mode. In draft mode, we have embedded 2D CAD into SketchUp. We've restricted the ability to orbit in this draft mode. So what you can do is draw with a line weight by layer type interface. So if I go to my line tool, I can draw some lines. I'll go to my rectangle tool, it's a little quicker. Instead of ever getting in here and tinkering with the current layer, I just click on my Condoc message and I get my light layer, I get my medium, heavy, and wide. So it's very quick and easy to get through and draft. You can certainly change all these colors so that you get all those old familiar feelings from 2D CAD when you're drafting in SketchUp. Also, our Match Properties tool makes it really easy to sample one and apply to the next. So that way, it's all those tools you need to never be tinkering with the current layer. Now, we do have a handful of wall sections that we've already created. So for instance, this one, I'll go in here and say we want to build a wall section of this. I click on my detail tool, hit the button, it rattles off the scenes that I need to create that detail in layout. I'm going to save this, save as our desktop temp. This one's going to be 825 proposed conditions. And when I go back into layout, I'll go to my construction documents, my Condoc details. I'm going to add a 1 inch equals a foot detail, 1.5 inch equals a foot, and 3 inches. I go to my references, and just like all the other Condoc tools, I just need to relink to my desktop temp, and then we have our 825. That's going to render it over. All of our viewports are going to stack. Everything is rendered by line weight. So now if I go to 100%, I can just stretch these around, and you can now see 100%. You've got all those line weights. You've got the ability to really draft, truly draft in 2D very quickly, all within SketchUp. So now let's head back to our presentation and wrap things up here. What I've really shown you today is that SketchUp and Lumion are pretty nice design platforms, and layout is a really nice drafting system. But the common thread that makes them all work so nicely together really is the Condoc tools and the system of organization and just knowing what to do, where to put it. So this system can be implemented or abandoned during any point in the design process. It can be used to expedite design packets and construction documents. It works with any project size, whether that's residential, commercial, mid-rise. It works with any project type, whether it's renovation or new. And this system is predictable, organized, fast, and cost-effective. The Conduct system is a set of standards. It's your layers, it's your templates, it's your other heads-up display. It's that standalone RBZ that always keeps you on point. The Conduct tools automate the most difficult tasks in SketchUp. And the Conduct drawings adhere to the industry graphic standards that an architect demands, all while maintaining 100% connectivity between the design model and the 2D documents. There's never any need to explode anything to get excellent results with Conduct. So again, my name is Mike Brightman. My company is Brightman Designs, and we offer design, drafting, visualization, and workflow training services. We do have a bunch of events coming up, whether it's webinars, trainings, public trainings. We do private trainings and online consulting. We have a lot of different options at brightmandesigns.com. You can sign up for our email list, and we'll always keep you informed on all of our Lumion tutorials, all of our Conduct tutorials, and everything that we're up to. You can pick up a license of Conduct at Basecamp or up until Friday. In those folders, we have a resources sheet. It's got all kinds of good resources, everything that we really use in our day-to-day workflow. But there's also a promo code on there to get $50 off. We do have a Conduct table and a Lumion table. So certainly after the session, if you guys have any questions, we'll be here till Wednesday through the end of the event. And I do really look forward to working with all of you guys in the future. I really appreciate your attention today and the opportunity to share our work. So thank you very much for coming.